Everyone thinks Airbnb is just a cheaper alternative to hotels. That's completely wrong. Airbnb didn't win by offering lower prices. They won by solving a problem the entire hotel industry never saw coming. And once you understand what that problem was, you'll see why hotels couldn't compete no matter how hard they tried. Let's start in 2008. The hotel industry was thriving. Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, these were giants. They had scale, brand recognition, real estate across every city on earth. Billions in revenue. Millions of loyal customers. Then two guys named Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were struggling to pay rent in San Francisco. They had an idea: rent out their apartment on Airbnb during a design conference. They made $1,000 in one weekend. That's how Airbnb started. A side hustle born from desperation. But here's what makes this story interesting. Airbnb didn't compete with hotels on traditional hotel terms. They didn't build massive properties. They didn't hire thousands of staff. They didn't invest in luxury amenities. Instead, they did something completely different. They realized that hotels were solving the wrong problem. Hotels thought people wanted standardized rooms in prime locations. Same bed, same bathroom, same layout, same corporate feel. Efficiency. Scale. Standardization. But what people actually wanted was something hotels couldn't provide: authentic local experiences. A tourist visiting Paris doesn't just want a bed. They want to stay in a real Parisian apartment. They want to live like a local. They want neighborhood recommendations from someone who actually lives there. They want culture, connection, authenticity. Hotels couldn't offer this because they were built on standardization. Every Marriott looks the same everywhere. That's actually a strength in traditional hospitality. But it became a weakness against Airbnb. Airbnb's business model was fundamentally different. They didn't own properties. They didn't employ staff. They didn't manage buildings. They simply created a platform connecting people who had spare rooms or apartments with people who wanted to stay somewhere. The hosts provided the authenticity, the neighborhood knowledge, the local experience. Airbnb just connected the dots. This is crucial. Airbnb wasn't competing on property ownership or operational efficiency. They were competing on something completely different: trust, authenticity, and community at scale. Let's look at the numbers. According to Airbnb's financial reports and industry data, by 2015, Airbnb had over 2 million listings across 190 countries. Marriott, despite being founded in 1927 and having massive capital, had approximately 700,000 rooms globally. Airbnb achieved 3 times more inventory without owning a single property. Think about that. Airbnb's entire inventory was created by regular people. The capital came from hosts. The risk was distributed across millions of individuals instead of concentrated in one corporation. This meant lower operational costs, faster scaling, and incredible capital efficiency. But there's something deeper happening here. Airbnb understood something fundamental about consumer psychology that hotels missed. People don't just want accommodation. They want to belong. They want authentic experiences. They want stories to tell. They want to feel like a traveler, not a tourist. Hotels were in the accommodation business. Airbnb was in the belonging business. This shift in perspective changed everything. It changed pricing strategy. It changed customer loyalty. It changed how they competed. Hotels competed on room count, star ratings, amenities, and location. Airbnb competed on uniqueness, authenticity, experience, and connection. These are completely different competitive dimensions. When hotels dropped prices to compete, it didn't matter. Airbnb guests weren't shopping purely on price. They were shopping on experience. When hotels renovated properties, it didn't matter. Airbnb's charm came from authenticity, not luxury. When hotels built in premium locations, Airbnb guests often preferred staying in neighborhoods where locals actually lived. The hotel industry was fighting on a battlefield they chose. But Airbnb had invented an entirely new battlefield. By 2016, Airbnb surpassed Marriott in number of listings. By 2020, Airbnb's market valuation exceeded $100 billion. Today, Airbnb is worth over $90 billion and operates in more countries than most hotel chains have properties. The destruction of the hotel industry's dominance wasn't about being cheaper. It was about being fundamentally different. Here's the critical insight. Markets don't get disrupted by companies that compete better. They get disrupted by companies that compete differently. Airbnb didn't try to build better hotels. They didn't try to hire better staff or create luxury experiences. They changed the game entirely. The lesson is this: if you're competing in someone else's game, they'll always have the advantage. The winning move is to change what game you're playing. Marriott and Hilton were playing the hotel game. Airbnb was playing the belonging game. Hotels maximized revenue per room. Airbnb maximized trust and community at scale. Hotels owned everything. Airbnb owned the platform. Hotels employed thousands. Airbnb enabled millions. These differences compound. Over time, they become insurmountable advantages. This pattern appears everywhere. Netflix didn't try to open more video rental stores than Blockbuster. They changed the game to streaming and data. Amazon didn't try to open more physical stores than retailers. They changed the game to online commerce and logistics. Uber didn't try to be a better taxi company. They changed the game to ride-sharing and gig economy dynamics. Airbnb didn't try to be a better hotel. They changed the game to peer-to-peer stays and authentic experiences. The winning companies aren't always the ones with the most resources. They're the ones that see a different game and play it before anyone else. So what can you take from this? If you're building a business, don't ask how you can compete better in an existing market. Ask what market the customer actually wants that nobody is serving yet. If you're investing, don't look for companies that execute existing strategies better. Look for companies changing the competitive dimensions entirely. If you're in an established industry, don't panic about low-cost competitors. Panic about competitors changing what the customer actually values. Airbnb's genius wasn't technology. It wasn't capital. It wasn't property or scale. It was seeing that hotels were solving for standardization while customers actually wanted authenticity. One simple idea. One different perspective. One different game. That's how you disrupt an entire industry.